Welcome back to another NFL Draft Grades videos. We're really pushing the limit on how late we can release these things. We are nearly a month post-draft, and I'm finally through 5 divisions, this being the 5th. So, we only got 3 more. We're going to push through. We're going to continue to release these even as the days and weeks fly by. It's crazy to think that we are 1 month post-NFL draft and that much closer to the start of the NFL preseason. I mean, teams or players are already reporting for OTAs. It's kind of wild to think about. It really goes to show how quickly the NFL calendar moves, even in the offseason. And I know that people are like, the season goes by too fast. Well, the offseason does go by fast as well. So, and we are very happy that it does. Today we're talking about the NFC East, or the NFC Beast, as some would like to call it, the Super Bowl champion in this division, as well as the other participant in the NFC Championship game. So a very stacked division. The Cowboys, as well, a solid organization in terms of showing up and playing football games. Other than that, the organizational practice, I guess is the word I would use, can be questioned. And then you have the Giants. We'll get into all of those teams, but first we're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys and America's team, as they would have you believe. Jerry Jones at it again with the first pick of their draft, taking Tyler Booker at number 12 overall. And this was a massive reach for me. That's why I gave it a 1. He was my 52nd player on the board. This was the biggest reach of the first round outside of the quarterback position. I killed the Detroit Lions for taking Tyreek Williams. That gap was only 31 spots. This one is 51. This is by far the biggest reach for me. I had him at 52. It's not that I don't think he's a good player. I think the lack of athleticism really limits what he's going to be able to do at the NFL level. And I can't take that in the first round. I can't have him be the first guard off the board when Gray Zabel is sitting right there. Right? I had such a massive gap between Gray Zabel and Tyler Booker that to take Booker over Zabel makes 0 sense to me. Now, what Booker does well, what he can hang his hat on, he's elite at, right? His grip strength and his just power, right? He's got great hands. His hand placement is good. He plays the position with a very high technical proficiency. The problem is he is one of the worst athletes you will ever see at the guard position. He does not pull well. He cannot get out and move in space. You want to run wide zone, you're not running it with him. You literally cannot run that specific blocking scheme with him at guard. You just can't. Him getting to the second level is a little bit of a struggle. Like, he can't beat guys to the spot. And so if you need him to play in a phone booth, there might not be a better guard in this class at that position, right? Or at doing that. But guard, you need to be able to move, right? And so, this even trickles into his pass protection. He struggles to move his feet. Like, he's very heavy-footed. There is no doubt about that. Like, the way that he moves is very different from even Donovan Jackson, who went at pick 24 to the Vikings. So I was not a fan of this pick. Thought it was way too early. It's not that I don't love, or it's not that I don't like the player. But I just for what he needs to be to justify being taken at pick number 12, he just can't be that. He is not going to be an all-pro caliber and a Pro Bowl caliber guard. Like, he just doesn't have the athletic upside to be that. He can be a solid guard in the NFL. I really do think that he can be, like, in terms of guard rankings, he can be right at 32, right? He's on that fringe of being a number 1 guard, but he isn't quite there. And I think a lot of it is because of that athletic limitation. So I gave that a 1. And then they go and get one of my favorite edge rushers in this class, in Donovan Ezraku, in the second round with pick 12. I'm not surprised Ezraku fell, out of the first round, simply because of his stature and his size. It's not really NFL caliber, although it didn't matter for Jalen Walker, did it? But Ezraku doesn't play with a ton of power. He really is a finesse rusher. He's going to win with technique. And we've seen guys that can't win with power, or yeah, that I don't want to say can't, but that struggle to win with power, flame out in the league. That base power is super important for an edge rusher, and he doesn't have that, but he is one of the best technical pass rushers that you will see coming out of college. He's not quite as good as Latu last year. Latu was ridiculous with his hand usage and the way he set guys up. But Ezraku, I think, is more explosive as an athlete and can bend the corner better. So when you pair that kind of finesse ability with Ezraku's ability to get around the edge and really bend, beat guys to a spot and get around the corner, I think he's kind of, we're talking about on the same level as Abdul Carter, almost. Almost. I don't want to say the same level because Carter's is like generational type ability to do so. But Ezraku is like right up there with him, right? He's not too far away. So Ezraku is definitely a guy that I'm not surprised went out of the first round, given what the NFL likes, in a Mykel Williams and a Shamar Stewart. But boy, I really do think he's going to be a solid edge rusher in this league, and he's going to be. I don't know if he'll ever be an alpha, given the lack of power in his game, but he's going to be the best number 2 in the NFL, and I truly do believe that. You get him a lot of one-on-ones, he's going to make tackles look silly. That's just what he's going to do. And then they get another one of my guys in the third round, and the only reason that they got him in the third round is because he tore his ACL in week 4, I think, this past season. Siobhan Revel, a corner out of ECU. He's got the length, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism. It's really just how well he bounces back from this ACL tear. If he bounces back well, you're talking about a player that has all the tools to be an elite corner in this league, and I mean that. I'm not, I try not to throw around the word elite a lot because, I want it to be used in situations where I really, truly believe a player is that kind of caliber. And I do think that Revel could be that type of corner in the NFL if he comes back fully healthy. Now, he is a little bit more raw in terms of his technique, so he's really just got to work on honing that. Just making sure that he can stay and hit pockets consistently. He's got to work on his press technique a little bit. But when you talk about his arm length and his hand size, and the fact that he's already 6'3" and is like 200 pounds, I mean, those corners do not grow on trees. That is special. And for a team like Dallas that needs those kind of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, taking a player like this in the third round where it really mitigates the risk of the injury. This is great process here. It really is, and I think that Revel is going to pay off. And I think this is going to be one where we look back and be like, yeah, even with the injury, he should have gone higher. And then in the 5th round, they get running back out of Texas. They stay in state and get Jadon Blue. This is right around where I had Blue on my board. In terms of what he offers you as a running back, there's not much there. As a pass catcher, though, he's a pretty good route runner. I thought that him and Brashard Smith were two of the best, like, just pure pass catchers. And, Brashard Smith being a converted wide receiver definitely helps. But being the best pure pass catchers in this class, I do think Smith was better. And given that Smith didn't go until, I think, the 7th round, I would have rather had him than Blue because I think Smith is at least, he's a better running back as well. I think he's a better receiver out of the backfield. I think he's a better running back than Blue. Blue really doesn't give you anything as a running back. But he will show up on 3rd down and make some really nice catches. He'll shake and bake in the open field, make some guys miss, get open. So if you're looking for a threat on 3rd down, this is your guy. He's a little bit undersized for the running back position, but you're going to be able to count on him in 3rd down, reliable hands. He'll get you first downs, stuff like that. Super important. I didn't think he was a great pass protector, which begs the question how much you'll be able to use him on 3rd down and how much you'll be able to use him elsewhere. I think maybe the limited usage is why he fell to the 5th round, given kind of what he is as a pass catcher. He just doesn't do much. He's pretty much a one-trick pony. I didn't watch Shamar James out of Florida, but, they took him with their 2nd, 5th round pick. And then I did watch Ajani Cornelius out of Oregon, the other tackle. So you had Josh Connerly and then Cornelius. And Cornelius is a fun player, man. If he just is able to figure it out in terms of just growing into his body, putting on some muscle, some strength, working on his anchor, just becoming a more complete, well-rounded player. Like, the flashes were there. I had a 6th-round grade on him, so I thought this was a good spot. But I think that he can really be this developmental tackle that you take later in the rounds that ends up becoming a starter for you. He's got the length and the size that you're looking for at that position. I don't really think he's much of a mean streak run blocker. You'd like him to finish a little bit better in that area. And like I said, you got to work on the technique. He just there are too many plays on his tape at Oregon where he's just getting beat because the defender is more technically sound than him. It's not that he was getting out athleted. There was some of that, but it wasn't huge. He was just getting beat straight up. So if you can work on that and get him to figure it out, and I also think that he could kick into guard if you need him to. I think he's got a little bit of positional versatility there. But I would definitely try him out at tackle, see how he does. So I gave that a 3. I think the value is good. So honestly, good on the Cowboys for not having a ton of reaches here. I didn't watch 2 of their 3 7th-round picks, but I did watch Phil Maffa. Maffa is a fine running back. I feel like he was 7th round was just where he was going to get slotted. He's not an elite athlete. He's not a great pass catcher. He doesn't do much well, but some of his runs are just jaw-dropping in that highlight sense. There were a couple of hurdles that he had, plays where he just straight up jumps over dudes, stays on his feet, absorbs contact, where it's like, okay, if I can get that guy every once in a while, sure, let me take a flyer on that in the 7th round. But other than that, he's just really a depth piece for you. He'll fill out your roster. He can take a couple of goal line touches. He's not super physical, but it's the 7th round. I thought that was good. That was where he was valued. So overall, the Dallas Cowboys had a 3.33. That would be repeating. But yeah, I thought that outside of that 1st-round pick, they did a really good job of getting good value. Especially in their 2nd and 3rd round picks, taking guys that slid a little bit. Especially with Revel, a guy who slid because of injury, that's going to be one of those picks. Like I said, it's going to be one of those picks down the road. We're going to look back at it and be like, yep, that was a great pick for the Cowboys, and a lot of teams pass on him when they shouldn't have. With Ezeraku, I get why, and we'll see. This is going to be kind of that litmus test for me, because Verse was another one last year. I kind of whiffed on, and I didn't whiff on Jared Verse. I had a 1st round or I think it was a late 1st on him. But I just think because he didn't have other ways to win outside of a speed to power and just straight bull rush, I was like, okay, how well is this going to work in the league? Turns out when you have some of the heaviest hands we've ever seen and just absolutely blow dudes off the ball, it works in the NFL. Now with Ezeraku, he doesn't have that, but he's got one of the better, in terms of combos of finesse game and, just ways to win. He's got a super deep bag. He's got a lot of that, and I've been fooled by that before. So I'm really going to pay attention to him this season and as his career progresses, and to how he's doing and where his weaknesses are, so that I can learn from it, as a draft enthusiast and analyst, learn from that and make sure that I don't make those mistakes again in the future. So a 3.33 overall. I thought it was a good, solid draft for the Dallas Cowboys, getting good players, getting good value. Hopefully Tyler Booker can be a starter for them consistently. But yeah, moving on, we've got the New York Giants. And I was a pretty big fan of the Giants draft class. When I went back and looked at it, they had a lot of guys that I really liked, and they got good value on them. And this is, starting with their 1st overall pick in Abdul Carter at the number 3 slot. He was my number 4 player in this class, I believe, behind Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter, and Mason Graham. And I thought that given where the Giants were on the defensive side of the ball and wanting to move off of Kayvon Thibodeau, this was an absolute perfect pick. His ability to bend the corner and get just generational type bend and explosiveness off the line of scrimmage is going to give NFL tackles fits immediately at the NFL level. Now, the issue with Carter is that he doesn't play the run particularly well. He jumps a lot. He'll make splash plays. Like, he's kind of like that TJ Watt edge rusher mold where he will defeat blocks early in the play, like just based off of speed and explosiveness. He'll get around the block. He'll make a play. But then you get those where he jumps way out of position, creates a massive lane that the running back now has to do nothing to get through, and the linebacker has a ton of trouble filling the hole. So you take the good with the bad because he can absolutely wreck the game on passing situations, just regular like first and second downs with negative plays. You'll take a 15, 20-yard gash every once in a while because of his ability to put the offense behind the sticks and really make it so that they have to play in a lot of second and long situations, right? That's what you want as a defense. You want to get the offense in second and long and force them to play in a third and medium, third and long because of that, right? You got to get them off schedule early. And so I like to pick, this gives them one of the better defensive lines in the class with in the NFL with Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence already on that defensive line. So I thought it was a great pick. I thought it was really a no-brainer for him, run that card up to the podium. And then they traded back into the first round to get Jaxson Dart. And listen, they didn't have to give up as much as I thought they would have. Like, when you talk about what the Falcons had to give up to get James Pierce, the Giants are probably like, how did we get away with what we did? And the Texans are probably like, we should have asked for a first. But they take Jaxson Dart, and Jaxson Dart was my number 100 rated player, literally on the dot. And so I just, again, taking a player way before he should be taken because of his positional value. And I get the quarterback position thing. Right, I'm going to try to reason through this because if you hit on a quarterback early, it is the best value in all of football, right? Being able to have a rookie quarterback like we saw it with Jaden Daniels. The Commanders can now afford a 4-year window where they can pay all of their free agents and all of their current players as much money as they want to because their quarterback is only taking up like 3% of the cap. I just made that number up. I don't know if that's actually true. Whereas you have a team like the Patriots, or not the Patriots, I don't know why I thought the Patriots, the Chiefs, where Patrick Mahomes is taking up 17, 18% of the cap. When you have a quarterback taking up that much of your cap space, it limits what you can do roster construction-wise. So I get the process behind trading up to the first round, getting that 5th year of team control on that rookie deal. The problem is I just don't think this is the quarterback that does it. I thought that Jaxson Dart was a 3rd-round pick, right? I thought that his ability to read a defense, make throws on time, fit passes into tight windows, was so elementary that it was going to take him 3 years before he was a good starting quarterback. And at that point, you're already you've wasted the entire rookie contract, and so that value doesn't hold that same value anymore. The thing with Jaden Daniels is that he hit the ground running immediately in his rookie season. So the Commanders now get maximum value based off of that contract. If you're the Giants and Dart only plays and doesn't really play or play well until the 4th year, you now lose all of that value. And so, there were other options there in terms of impact players in the first round that if you did want to trade up, you could have taken, or you could have just stayed pat in the 2nd round and still gotten those players and not had to have to give up all of those other assets that they did. And with Dart, you're really just banking on projection. Like his arm, and his arm is like, it's good. I don't think it's great. There were so many easy button throws for him because of Lane's offense and the way he's able to design just home run touchdown plays. Like when we talk about touchdown plays, like Lane Kiffin has a list of them and they are immediate touchdowns. If the team executes right, it's an immediate touchdown. Most other places can't say that. And so I think that, there's too much projection here, and I just don't trust Dart to be what New York needs him to be early enough in the contract to justify trading up and making this pick, on top of the fact that he was already my quarterback 3, and my quarterback 3 had a 3rd-round grade. So just didn't. Yeah, it gets a 1. I don't have to explain it much more. Darius Alexander in the 3rd round is about where I had him. I think that given his age and the fact that it took him so long to produce, there is a big question mark about what he could be at the NFL level. But he's got the size. His final season at Toledo had fantastic production. The tape looked good. And so you really just kind of hope that that's the player he is at the NFL level, because if he is, you just got a great value on day 2 of the draft in the 3rd round, and a player that's going to sit next, or is going to be next to Dexter Lawrence, and is big and can move, right? And now all of a sudden your defensive line is built super well inside and super well on the outside to rush the passer and inside to stop the run and rush the passer. Outside just to rush the passer. I don't know how much run stopping they're going to be doing on the edges in New York with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. But people were talking about Alexander as being a late 1st round pick. That's where I was like, okay, hold on a second. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I just don't see that. But if you want to take him in the 3rd round, I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is the kind of player where you take him in the 3rd round and just you hope it works out, right? You develop him. I mean, for him, he's already, I think, 25 years old. So I don't know how much, like, the problem with being 25 is your body is basically fully developed. Like, you don't have much more physical development to do. It's all of, like, your technique and your mental stuff, which is why teams like younger players, because they haven't hit that physical peak yet, or they haven't, hit their prime physical era, because it's a couple of years usually. So you want to maximize that. With Alexander, I think he's already in it, and so you're not going to get all of that. So that's where the fall came from, because when you look at his size and what he gives you in terms of his production and his tape and his final season, there's a lot to like there. But the fact that he's 25, the fact that it took him so long to produce at the MAC level, one of the worst conferences in FBS college football, that's something that's a little, you got to be wary of that. And then they get one of my favorite watches in this class in terms of Cam Scatabo. And Scatabo is one of those players that I had to watch like 3 or 4 times to really appreciate. Like I went from, I was not a fan of him early on, and then the more I watched him, it was like I kept watching different games, and I'm like, okay, every single thing that he did in that first game that I didn't like, he still does. But all of the things that I was like, yeah, I see the vision. He continued to do that in every single game. There were no games where I was like, oh, see, when he can't do that, he's not a great runner. He did it in every game, right? He's making guys, like, his contact balance is just shy of Ashton Genty in this class in terms of being, elite. And I, again, not using that word lightly, he is an elite contact balance runner, like just unreal, his ability to stay on his feet. He's got pretty good lateral agility. Like, that's not elite, but it's good. I think he's got good lateral agility. I think that he lacks explosiveness in terms of downhill running, and that's really where I struggled with him. The top end speed I don't really care about, but I think that even in the first 15 yards, I think he struggles to get going. And that's where he's going to struggle in the NFL level, because even some of the slower top-end speed runners, that first 15 yards, they had the burst enough to hit the holes, hit the gaps, break angles initially, so that when they got 20 yards down the field, it wasn't as big of a deal that they couldn't reach top-end speed, because they had already, you really just want that high acceleration, right? And I didn't see that with Scatabo. He's not. When the play is dead in the backfield, I felt like he left a little meat on the bone in terms of making things happen, whereas some of your more elite running backs will make things happen, right? But that being said, he breaks tackles at a consistently great level, stays on his feet, fights for yards, has a great mentality. I think he's going to fit in New York really well. I had a second round grade on him. Like, I was super high on this running back class. I thought that they were going to fall. I knew that because of there were so many good ones. Teams didn't feel like they needed to take them early. But I just, in terms of value, in terms of fit, I think that Scatabo is a home run pick here for the Giants in the 4th round. And they get Marcus Mbao in the 5th round with the 18th pick in that round. I was a little bit surprised that Mbao fell as far as he did. I had a 3rd round grade on him, and they get him in the mid-5th. I think that, I don't know with what New York does if Mbao was a perfect fit, but I think that his ability to move block and really play in space and be an athletic blocker is going to be something that the Giants can take advantage of and use in a way that's super beneficial to that run game. I think that you'll probably have to kick him into guard just because he doesn't have the length to play the tackle position. Like, he struggled. Like, that's where he struggled the most at Purdue was his ability in pass pro, just because you saw the arm length pop up as an issue from pretty consistently, I would say. So I think a move to guard would be good for him. He's just got to work on that technique. He's young. He's only 21. Like, this is a kid who's going to see, like we just talked about, he's going to see his physical peak in a couple of years. And I think that when we see that, given that he's already a really good athlete and moves really well and blocks on the move really well, has good hand placement when he's doing so, I think he's just going to develop even more as that gap scheme blocker. You really just fill into his body, learn to use his hands and feet in unison with each other to just move guys off the spot. And I think he can be a really good guard down the line. And then in the 7th round, with their first pick, they picked Thomas Fidone out of Nebraska. I really liked Fidone. I think it was a 4th round. No, I had a 5th round grade on him. As a tight end, I thought that he gave you everything that you wanted as an inline guy. He just nothing special, right? Like, it was good, not great across the board. He's not a great athlete. Doesn't have great hands, but he will make plays every once in a while. He will block for you. He's got a good mentality there. Just one of those guys who's going to be a solid tight end too, I think. But I think, getting him in the 7th round is where the value comes. And I think that, that's worthy of a 4 because of how beneficial or impactful he'll be for that offense, I believe. And then I didn't watch Corey Black, so you got that NA next to his name. Overall, I think it was a 3.66 for the New York Giants. I thought they had a really good draft in terms of getting guys that I really liked in rounds later than I thought they were going to go. And then you obviously get Abdul Carter in the 1st round. If they didn't take Jaxson Dart at that spot, if they didn't trade up and get him, and they waited to take a quarterback or even didn't take a quarterback, I would have been fine. Like, I didn't think this quarterback class, you had to take one of them. Like, last year's class, it was kind of like, okay, you have to walk away with a quarterback in this class. That's how good I thought it was. Given who they already have in their quarterback room and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, I didn't think it was a necessity. And they decided to, and they did it in a fashion that I wouldn't have, and they did it a little earlier than I would have. So they get a 3.66, could have been higher is what I'm trying to say. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champions. And I was impressed with the value, and I shouldn't be just because it's Howie, and he does a good job of not trying to do too much, especially in the early rounds. But I think that given where some of these guys were slotted to go and their athletic upside and what they bring to the table, that they did a good job, and that starts with Jahad Campbell, who is my number 9 or 10 player in this class. They get him at 31. Now, there were some injury concerns apparently with him that cropped up late in the draft process that I'm not privy to. We're not privy to, but NFL teams have the full docket there. However, I just think Jahad Campbell, as a football player, even with the injury history, is too good to pass up on, and a lot of teams are going to regret doing so, especially for the fact that he just went to the Eagles, like the team that just won the Super Bowl. It's not, it's one of those things where it's not just the fact that you passed on him, but it's the fact that he also went to the best team in the NFL currently. So you're gonna have to face him if you want to win a Super Bowl. You're gonna have to probably get through him. And with what he does in the run game and the pass game, and the fact that he's still super young and is still developing, it's very scary. I think as a linebacking prospect, he's up there, with some of the better ones in recent memory. And I can't believe that he fell as far as he did. I really can't. I was shocked when he was still there, and I just knew the Eagles were going to take him when he was still on the board. But Fangio is going to have a field day with this kid. His ability to drop in space and just move so fluidly in coverage and play the run at the same time. He's so smart. Such a good pick. And they got Andrew Makuba in the second round with the last pick. I'm not a huge Andrew Makuba fan. I thought that he was safety number 5 or 6 in this class. I thought he, small, is good in coverage, doesn't play the run very well. I didn't think he was great in coverage. His ball hawking ability was a little overstated, in my opinion. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Kevin Winston and or Xavier Watts went a little bit later and Makuba went higher. When I thought that those guys were clearly better, especially based off the tape and just the measurables. I thought it was a little bit of a reach. I think I had a late third, early fourth on Makuba, so I gave that a 2. I'm sure he'll find a spot in that defense, especially given what Fangio likes to run in that split zone type looks. He keeps Makuba out of the box, lets him use his ball hawking abilities, to his advantage, right? And then in the fourth round, they take Ty Robinson, and Robinson really shot up draft boards late in the process because of his combine and his testing and his pro day stuff. The underwear warrior stuff, which some people like to refer it to as. Robinson's tape is fine. I thought that there were flashes, obviously, of that athleticism, but I thought he lacked power. I thought he didn't play very strong. That play strength was a little underwhelming, and I think that there just wasn't enough flash. I had a 5th round grade on him. They take him in the early 4th, so it's a little early for me. It's a little bit of a reach, so I give it a 2. And then I didn't get to Mac McWilliams. He was literally the next safety that I was going to watch. Just ran out of time, but he is out of UCF, and I know that he was a late riser for people. And then Smell Mondon was one of my favorite linebacker watches in this class. They got him in the 5th round, and it's not because of his ability as a linebacker, which is I know going to be a little contradictory, but hear me out. He was a great athlete. He showed flashes of those linebacker stuff. And I think that, coming out of a Kirby Smart defense, you're going to struggle to find linebackers that do. We saw it with Nakobe Dean. And, who's on the Eagles, right? Another Georgia product that goes to the Eagles. But we saw it with Nakobe Dean. He's really, you struggle because what Kirby has his linebackers do a lot is just spy the quarterback. He doesn't ask them to do a ton in terms of the run game or the pass game. He just wants them to be, athletes. And Mondon did a great job at that. But I also thought that the little flashes that we got of Mondon as a run stuffer were like, okay, there's something here with this kid. Like he can absolutely be a linebacker that you can count on early downs, and then his pass coverage ability was very surprising. I think is the word I'm looking for. I was very pleasantly surprised with his ability to drop in coverage and make plays on the ball. And so I had a 3rd round grade on him. I was like, yeah, I'm all in the 3rd round. Are you kidding me? And then he goes in the 5th. I was like, yep, that's a 2 value steal or 2 round value steal for me. So that's going to be an automatic 5, especially, when I had a day 2 grade on him and he goes in day 3, like that's a 5. We'll see how it plays out, but I really do think that he's going to be a good player for them. So the double dip on linebacker, get a little bit of the same flavor. But I think that Mondon can be, more of the thumper than Campbell can be. And then in the last 5th round pick, so their 3rd 5th round pick, and then we get to their 4 6th rounders. They take Drew Kendall, the center, out of Boston College. This was just a little early for me. I had a late 6th, early 7th on Kendall, so about a round too soon. It is day 3, so it is what it is. I thought Kendall was fine as a center. I didn't think he was anything special, but it's, like I said, it's the 5th round. You're not really looking for starters here. You're just looking for good depth pieces, and I think Kendall can be that in the NFL. With the first 6th round pick, they took Kyle McCord, backup quarterback, to Jalen Hurts. Now it seems that's a 3. I had a 6th round grade on McCord. I think that what McCord does well is read defenses and get the ball out on time. I think what McCord doesn't do well is adjust to defenses post snap and then avert his eyes elsewhere and make secondary reads. And then he's got an average arm. I think that his arm is, it's fine. He doesn't make any, super special throws, but he puts it in a place where his guys can catch it and the defense can. I think his ball placement is pretty solid. So overall, I was fine with this pick, value wise, fit wise. I think that being with the Eagles and their ability to, I don't know if it's an ability, but they do a pretty good job of developing quarterbacks and then pawning them off elsewhere for more draft capital. Then in the 6th round, they take Miles Hinton, and I watched every single Michigan game, being a Michigan fan. So I was very familiar with Miles Hinton and his ability as a left tackle. I thought that as a pass protector, he's not a great athlete. He's much more of your run blocking type, and I think he does a really good job as a run blocker. He's got heavy hands. He can move his feet well. He's got good leg drive. He's not much of a move blocker, so you are going to be limited in what he can do in space. But he's good in gap, can duo. Can run some inside zone stuff, but as a pass protector, even though he was the best pass protector on that Michigan offensive line, that's not saying much, given how porous it felt they were as a unit. But I thought that, he was a little bit below average in terms of NFL standards. And then, I'm surprised they took Hinton before Cameron Williams. Williams as a player, 21 years old, had one of the worst ends to a season you will ever see from a guy who was getting some early second round buzz. The semifinal game against Ohio State was one of the worst games you will see of any player in this class in terms of just tape. It was, I don't know, Shiloh Sanders against Kansas State and DJ Giddens was pretty bad as well. But, Williams just got his lunch eaten by Jack Sawyer. It was the last play or the play that Jack Sawyer, the strip sack return touchdown, that was on Cam Williams. And it was the cleanest win that Jack Sawyer's had in his entire life. But Williams has all of the athletic and measurable tools that you look for in a tackle. And he just happened to go to Jeff Stoutland and the best developer of the offensive line in the NFL. This is, for Cameron Williams, the best thing that could have happened to him. And then for the Eagles, they're getting a starting caliber tackle in terms of measurables and athletic ability. I fully believe that they are going to turn him into a starting tackle at some point down the line, and he's going to be a damn good one. He just needs some more confidence. He just needs some coaching. He needs to be coached up, right? Technique-wise, he's got to be more confident in himself. Early in the season, it was okay, this kid's got something. You're still gonna have to develop it at the NFL level, but there's a lot there. And now it kind of feels like his confidence is wavering. He doesn't really feel like he doesn't feel confident in his abilities. And I keep coming back to confidence because you're going to have to build him back up. You're just going to have to. And then in the 6th round, or the last pick of the draft, and their last pick of the 6th round, they take Antoine Powell Ryland out of Virginia Tech. And I can't remember, I was watching Aeneas Peebles, and I was like, who is this edge? This kid is making plays he looks like an NFL caliber edge rusher. And I looked him up. I was like, who is he? Because I was looking for, in terms of somebody to watch out for next year. And I was like, well, he's not on the current roster, so let me go back to last year. It's oh, yeah, no, he's absolutely in this class, because I hadn't created my entire watch list yet. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to come back to him. And when I did, I was like, yeah, I like this kid a lot. I believe I had a 4th round grade on him. I thought his ability to, blend the ways that he wins with power, with speed. He's got good explosiveness off the line. I think he's got some good bend as well. He plays the run well. I was like, this is a guy who's going to go in the 4th round, be a really good rotational guy. Could potentially be your number 2 if you need him to be, and just have a solid 8, 9, 10-year NFL career where, he maybe plays for 3 teams, but, has solid impacts, maybe gets 8, 9 sacks in a season. And he goes in the 6th round, and I was like, really? The NFL didn't like what he offered. But I just think he's going to be a good player. I don't know. He's one of those guys where I just got a feeling Like, I just got a feeling that he's gonna work, and whatever role he is in, like that role is just gonna work really well. So we'll see on that. But overall, the Eagles get a 3-4-4. I thought that if they would have just not reached on Makuba and Robinson, specifically Makuba, I'm okay with the Robinson one. That's a day 3 pick, right? If they didn't take Makuba and instead they went with a different safety, Xavier Watts, for example, who went the 4th round. I think this is a that changes the rating. It even changes my perception of the draft. Like, they still got some really good players, and I think that players are going to be impact players down the line for years to come. But that one is going to come back. Like, I'm going to keep thinking about that one from taking this from a great draft class to maybe one of those that we talk about, like the 2017 Saints draft class. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and Makuba turns out to be the best safety from this class. But I have my doubts in that realm. And lastly, we'll talk about the Washington Commanders, the team that fell just short. I don't want to say just short. They got shellacked in the NFC Championship game, but fell short of a Super Bowl trip and only had 5 picks to work with. That's not really what you're looking for when you want to be able to capitalize. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. You want a lot of draft picks when you have a quarterback that's on a big deal. When he's a rookie, draft picks are good, but you want to be able to spend money on proven players. Okay, let's get back to talking about the players. Their first round pick, they went with Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon, and he was the left tackle for him. He was super solid. Like, you could count on him to be stout in the pass game. As a run blocker, he was not great, to be nice. He just doesn't move guys. I thought his core strength is a little bit weak. His play strength is a little bit weak. As a move blocker, he was fine, but I just don't think he has the power to be a gap blocker right now. But he is young, so maybe he develops that down the line. But in terms of value, I thought this was right in line. I thought the fit's good. I like the spot that he landed. They desperately need help on the offensive line, especially in the left tackle position. So I think Connerly is going to come in and he's going to start day 1, and I think he can. But I wouldn't trust him to be a consistent, move blocker in the run game. And then they take Trey Amos in the late 2nd round. I had a late 2nd, early 3rd on him, so this is, exactly where I thought he would go, or exactly where I had him on my big board. And so, in terms of a 3, right there, technique wise, he's damn good, right? You're not gonna beat him much down the field, but I think that he's a little too handsy for me, and he's not a good enough athlete to keep up with some of these guys at the NFL level. And I thought that guys that were shiftier really gave him some trouble underneath. His ability to, just stay in the hip pocket because of that lack of athleticism, I thought, could be a problem, right? So, value-wise, good. It was a need, so 3. And then they get Jalen Lane, the wide receiver out of Virginia Tech, in the late 4th. I had a 4th round grade on him. I think that he's kind of what they were missing in terms of their receiving core. He's a slot guy that's gonna, make plays. He can get open underneath. He can run after the catch. He's got good hands. He's not going to be a ball winner. He's not going to be a down the field type guy. But I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to be able to do a really good job of creating stuff for him to be a playmaker. And then I think he can even give you a little something in the return game. Just to be a impact player in 2 phases of the game. So I thought that was a good value pick, in the 4th round. Didn't watch Kane Madrain. I think he's out of UCLA. That one was one that I wasn't really even familiar with. Didn't have him on a watch list. Didn't really hear much about him, so I can't even offer a little bit on that. And then Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt in the 7th round. He really didn't get to play football at all this last season because of a eligibility issue or an enrollment issue, going from New Mexico to Arizona. Unfortunate for us because he was a fun player at New Mexico. And then in his one game at Arizona, which coincidentally was against New Mexico, he had a very nice showing. And he's someone that's explosive. He gets downhill really quickly. He's got breakaway speed. the thing with him that you're just hoping for is for him to put it all together. It just felt like the vision and the ability to make people miss, it was lacking. So you want him to build those things up, but also maintain his strengths in the other parts. And I had a 4th round grade on him. I thought that he was very worthy of a early day 3 pick in that running back room, or in this running back class. They get him in the late 7th round, like one of the last picks of the entire draft. Man, given what they have at the running back position, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and has a Tyrone Tracy-esque performance where you have a guy like Devin Singletary and Brian Robinson kind of do the same thing. And then, Tracy, a little bit different in terms of style from Krosky Merritt, but, I think that arc and that path could be very similar. So 3.5 for the Commanders. They only had 4 picks that I even watched. So, you average that out. It's going to be a solid grade as long as they didn't whiff on any of them, which they didn't. So I thought the NFC East had a really good, couple of drafts overall. The lowest grade I think was the Cowboys with the 3.33. So fantastic job from those front offices, finding value, not reaching too much. There were a couple, but I thought they did a good job overall. That'll do it for today's video. The NFC East. Next up, we're gonna finish out the AFC, and the only AFC division that I already did was the AFC North. So look for the East, West, and South. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you on the flip. See ya.